In February of 1959, 9 experienced hikers walked into the Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union. They were young, skilled, and documented everything, but none of them ever came back. What rescuers found weeks later was so disturbing that the Soviet government sealed the files, silenced witnesses, and officially closed the case with a single, chilling sentence: the hikers died due to a compelling natural force. To this day, no one knows what that force was. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass Incident. The expedition was led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student. The group was made up of 8 men and 2 women, all highly experienced hikers and almost all in their early 20s. Their goal was to reach a remote peak called Kolatsy Akal, in the language of the local Mansi people. That name translates to Dead Mountain. That should have been the first warning. One hiker, Yuri Yudin, had to turn back early due to a sudden illness. This decision saved his life. He would later say, "I wish I had gone with them. At least then I would know the truth." The remaining 9 continued on, unaware they were walking toward their final destination. The photos and journal entries they left behind paint a picture of a normal, happy adventure, laughing, building snow shelters, and trekking through the vast, white landscape. But as they approached Dead Mountain, the tone of the journal entries began to shift. The last entry is brief, almost hurried. It describes deteriorating weather and their plan to set up camp on the mountain slope. Their final camp was set up on the evening of February 1, 1959, on an exposed, treeless mountainside. That night, the conditions were brutal. Temperatures plummeted to -30 degrees Celsius, which is -22 Fahrenheit. Violent winds whipped across the slope, and visibility dropped to almost zero. The very last photo recovered from their camera is a strange, blurry image taken in the dark. It shows a blanket of snow and a strange, indistinct orb of light. That was the last picture they ever took. When the group failed to send a telegram signaling their return, a massive search operation was launched. On February 26, after weeks of searching, the rescue team finally spotted something on the slopes of Dead Mountain. It was the hikers' tent, but what they found made no sense at all. The tent was still standing, partially covered in snow, but it had been sliced open from the inside. All of the group's gear, their warm coats, boots, food, and supplies, was left behind, neatly organized. Leading away from the tent was a trail of footprints in the snow. They led straight down the slope, towards the tree line over a kilometer away. Some of the footprints were made by bare feet, others were made by people wearing only socks. Think about that for a moment. 9 experienced, highly trained hikers in the middle of the night during a blizzard with temperatures cold enough to kill a person in minutes cut their way out of their only shelter and ran half-dressed and barefoot into the freezing darkness. They didn't even stop to put on their boots. Whatever terrified them inside that tent was far worse than the certainty of freezing to death outside of it. The first 2 bodies were found beneath a large cedar tree at the edge of the forest. They were barefoot and wearing only their underwear. Their hands were burned and scraped raw as if they had desperately tried to climb the tree. One of them had bite marks on his own knuckles. The official cause of death was hypothermia. They had frozen to death, but it only gets worse from there. A short distance away, between the tree and the tent, 3 more bodies were discovered. They were positioned as if they had been trying to crawl back to the camp. One had a fractured skull, another had broken ribs, but there were no external wounds, no signs of a struggle. It was as if they had been crushed by an immense, invisible pressure. For 2 long months, the search continued for the remaining 4 hikers. Finally, as the deep winter snow began to melt, they were found buried in a ravine, not far from the cedar tree. Their injuries were horrifying. They had suffered massive internal trauma, with crushed ribs and skulls. The force required to inflict such damage was compared to that of a car crash. Yet, again, there were no outward signs of injury, no soft tissue damage. One of the women was missing her tongue, another was missing both of their eyes, and strangest of all, some of their clothing was found to be radioactive. There were no signs of a fight, no evidence of an avalanche, no animal tracks anywhere nearby. Something had killed them with brutal, unbelievable force, and then vanished without a trace. The Soviet investigation was short and secretive. They questioned the search party and local Mansi tribespeople, but then abruptly stopped. Key documents were classified. The entire area around Dyatlov Pass was closed to the public for 3 years. Locals who might have seen something were threatened into silence. The families of the hikers were told almost nothing. Autopsy reports were kept vague, and crucial photos from the scene went missing. The official conclusion offered no real answers. It simply stated that an unknown compelling force had caused the deaths, and that was it. The case was closed. leaving a storm of unanswered questions. What could have caused such terror and such violent, inexplicable injuries? What about the radiation? Why were body parts missing? The government's silence only fueled the mystery. Over the decades, countless theories have tried to explain what happened that night. Some suggest secret military weapons testing, perhaps a new type of concussive bomb that could crush bones without breaking the skin. Others point to infrasound low-frequency sound waves generated by the wind that can induce feelings of intense panic, nausea, and hallucinations, causing the hikers to go mad and flee their tent. Could they have stumbled upon a chemical spill or a clandestine rocket test that explains the radiation? Of course, there are darker theories. Theories of a violent encounter with something or something unknown. Perhaps the most scientific modern theory, proposed in 2020 by the Russian government, was a small, delayed slab avalanche, but most experts immediately rejected this. Avalanches don't cause radiation, they don't selectively remove tongues, they don't make people flee half-naked, and they don't leave tents still standing. And most importantly, the slope simply wasn't steep enough for a significant avalanche to occur. The official explanation, then and now, just doesn't fit the facts. Yuri Yudin, the only member of the group who survived, kept a piece of his friend's clothing with him until the day he died. He spent his entire life seeking answers, saying, "If I had a chance to ask God just one question, it would be, what really happened to my friends that night?" The mountain is still there, people still hike it, but many locals still refuse to camp on its slopes, especially in winter, because some believe that whatever happened on that mountain in 1959 never truly left. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as haunting as we do, please like this video and subscribe for more dives into the world's greatest unsolved mysteries. Stay curious, and stay safe out there.